Hi, welcome to Empower Her. I'm Priya. I'm the host, and this series is focused on women empowerment. And I basically invite women from different areas, from different regions, from different cultures, from different professions to talk about their story and talk about, their journey and their struggles and challenges as a woman and how they have basically navigated those so that, other women can learn from it and then also feel inspired by it. And today I have a very special guest with me today, Ashley Harnarine, and I invited her basically because I connected her with her over LinkedIn, and I was looking at her profile, and I was just really impressed with her career background, her journey, and that just like really got me interested to know more about her. And we had like a quick conversation, and that just made me feel more confident that I definitely um, chose the right person to share this story. And so today I invited Ashley here to talk about her story, and we will go a little bit deep into what her journey has been like in a profession, and then also with her personal life as well. And basically I want to have women who are listening to this podcast learn and be inspired by it. So let's start with like a quick introduction. So if you can just give a little bit background about yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Priya. So my name's Ashley. I am a director of ecosystem sales at Accenture. I have been in the technology space for about a decade now, so that has been a wonderful experience. Not something that I really planned, but kind of did fall into. My ultimate goal was really to help people. I found that at a very young age, I had a nurturing personality, and I was really easy to help people kind of find their goals and create roadmaps to achieving their aspirations. And that was my goal really in life. And finding
Mm.
a position to be able to do that in sales and now help organizations do that has really been fulfilling for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think a lot of people need to also adapt that kind of, because it is one of your values, I would say, the skills that are your passions that you talked about is like that nurturing part of your personality and how you use that. And, people might not relate, nurturing with sales. I don't think we see it that way. We see sales as like kind of very aggressive and just like, really fast paced, that kind of a thing. You don't really think about it in that way. But I think that's a very interesting way to look at it. And that's why we will, definitely go deeper into it when we talk
Yeah.
about, what your management style is and,
Yes.
how did you end up in the role that you're currently at. Um, so yeah, let's just start with, back when maybe when you were a student and, what happened then? How did you, go into or start off a career? So yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, kind of similar to a lot of minorities, my parents told me I should be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. I quickly realized those three were not fitting for me.
Mhm.
And business was something that I was actually excelling at in school. And I decided, let me just try it and see what happens. I joined a club called Junior Achievement. And basically,
Mhm.
what it allowed me to do was join their company program where I started my own company. And it was
Mhm.
really amazing to see what that was like. But it was kind of no stress. Like you were able to start the company, you knew that there was no legal liabilities, it was in a safe
Mhm.
environment.
Mhm.
And our company won most achieved, most successful, most improved company. And I was like, oh, well, if I can do that here, maybe I can do that in the real world. So I would say that
Mhm.
really started my passion for business. And that's how I
Mhm.
started my undergrad. In my
Mhm.
undergrad, I did an undeclared first year because I didn't know where I wanted to specialize in. And I
mm,
quickly kind of went through the different majors and figured, well, I don't know what I want to do with my life. So the
mm,
one that is going to set me up for success is HR, because it was dealing with people. And it didn't matter what
mm,
career I decided that I wanted to choose, I would always have to interact with people. And so I
mm,
figured between HR and organizational behavior, I was setting myself up for success. So I chose that. I thought I was going to go into HR for the 4 years of my undergrad,
mm,
after which I graduated. I applied for a role where I was told I was overqualified when I had just
mm,
graduated. Um, and the recruiter was phenomenal. She kind of took me in and said, Ashley, I think you're overqualified because I think you're going to get bored with this role. But I do
mm,
think we have a position in sales that's going to be a great fit for you. Let's try that out for a year. And if you don't like it, you just wasted a year. If you do, it's phenomenal. And so I
mm,
started off in a BDR role and won a bunch of awards and quickly found my place and realized
mm,
that in HR, I was really looking to mentor one on one versus in
mm,
sales, I could really impact an entire company.
mm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely true.
Mhm.
And so when you entered sales, what was your impression of that field? How did you feel about it?
Yeah, oh gosh. I would say I thought of the typical car salesman where, they're
Mm,
very aggressive and they're kind of
mm,
pushy. I
mm,
figured there wasn't a lot of women in sales, and, is this the right place for me and what I want to do and
mm,
achieve in life?
mm,
And I think quickly finding the right mentors was a really great outlet for me to realize, oh, that's not the case. And
mm,
software sales, technology sales is very different than car sales.
mm,
We're not
mm.
pushing products, but it's more finding the value and creating a solution for our clients. So I would
Mhm,
say the stigma around sales might be correct for some careers, but not all.
mhm.
And it's really finding your place and finding the industry that's a good fit for you.
Yeah, I think something that you mentioned is absolutely true about like the support system because I think especially when you're starting off, you're kind of obviously unsure about exactly what you want. Do you even like where you are? And basically, is that like something that you can turn into an actual career path? And it's not just a job. Um, so yeah, I think that's absolutely important. So when it came to like the support system, where did you find it?
I would say one, look close to you, like your friends and your family that are always there and always kind of supported you to date. Those are going to be the closest people that you can lean on. But at the same point in time, you also want people in the industry. So I
Mhm,
looked for strong people within the organization that I could ask for help and to be a mentor. And I'd say that was
mhm,
crucial to my success because you need someone that's almost walked in those footsteps already for you to really
mhm,
say, well, what went well, what didn't, what should I try doing and how to navigate my path forward. And I feel
mhm,
like if I didn't have that, I may not have ended up with where I am today.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely true. And was your experience in the tech industry when it came to like especially seeing women, did it affect you in any way? Did you see a lot of women around in this role or in the industry? Or did you feel like, oh, okay, there's very few women. Why is that kind of feeling?
I would say it depended on the role. So I found that
Mhm,
women fell into roles of HR or very back
mhm,
office roles, whereas sales, because you're doing kind of that prospecting, you're hunting, it was something that required a lot of time. So sales, I will say right off
mhm,
the bat, is not 9 to 5. And
mhm,
that work life balance is hard to get to, it's hard to maintain. So I found that women were a little more reluctant just because of their household responsibilities and that work life balance that they couldn't commit to that. And so it
mhm,
was scarce to find a lot of
mhm,
women within the sales profession or ones
mhm,
that, were really passionate about trying to continue or progress within
mhm.
their sales career.
Mhm. Absolutely. And so, talking about, your current role, what motivated you to move into, like a leadership role in sales? And, were there any steps that, you took to get where you are?
Yeah, I would say for me, I really wanted to kind of rewrite that story. And so having a woman in leadership, being able to inspire women beyond that glass ceiling that appears, was
Mm,
really my motivation to getting into leadership. And so that was something I made very clear with my leaders early on, is that I do want to move into leadership. What can I do? What initiatives can I take to demonstrate that I have that capabilities, or what training can I do to make sure that
mm,
I'm aligned with that when that opportunity comes up? And so I was able to shadow my leaders. I was able to take on some of their tasks. So I was
mm.
empowered that when that opportunity appeared, I did the interview. It was an easy choice that Ashley was a good fit.
Amazing. So, yeah, I think when it comes to these steps that you talked about, I think obviously not everybody has access to that
Yeah.
sometimes. And obviously, it's a sad reality, but, a lot of women struggle with, getting those opportunities or like being exposed to, these kind of opportunities where they're able to like have these mentors or, being able to like shadow your leader or manager. But I think that's the most thing that, I have realized is, asking.
Yes.
And that might just sound very simple and basic. But I think that that's the first step, is
Yes.
just asking first, and, just being really honest with your leader, that, as you mentioned, that what you did is like, okay, making it clear that this is what I want and
Yeah.
what can I do to get there, and then finding that person who, can actually help you out. So, yeah, I feel like a lot of women kind of like struggle with that, because a lot of women just don't take the first step, which is just asking.
Yeah. Well, I
And
think
so,
there's even a step before that, which is getting clear with yourself, right? And
mhm,
saying, well, what do I want to achieve? What are my goals? What
mhm,
are my aspirations? And then set that intention. Because I would say if you're
mhm,
not clear on that vision, it makes it really hard for others to see it or to want
mhm,
to be able to help you. Um, so
mhm,
get clear on what you want to achieve first, and those
mhm,
opportunities aren't going to always walk their way over to you. You have to
mhm,
set, some intention, some goals, and say, I'm going to go talk to these people. If you have that
mhm,
will, if you're willing to ask those questions, I think it's about developing a bit of a thick skin to knowing that the worst
mhm,
that someone can tell you is no. And if they've said no,
mhm,
then you're one step closer to yes with someone else, because ask
mhm,
them why. Was it that they don't have the
mhm,
time? Is it that
mhm,
they're not the right person and they recommend someone else? Because that's going to
mhm,
lead you into getting to that yes. So
mhm,
don't be scared to ask. Don't be scared to kind of push your own limits and try to
mhm,
create those opportunities for yourself, because they're not always around, they're not always
mhm,
present, but they do
mhm,
exist. And with the right
mhm,
people, you're able to at least realize that, people are willing to help. Underlying,
mhm,
they do care, they do have that
mhm,
empathy, they want people
mhm,
around them to succeed, and you will find that person that is willing to help.
mhm. Absolutely. And so, let's talk a little bit more about what you mentioned before, is, the first step is, as I said, actually, asking yourself,
Yeah.
and getting to know if if you actually want this or that. How did you know that, you wanted to end up in a leadership role?
So I think for me, it was kind of going back to what are things that come easy to me? What goals do I have? And so a leader that I actually had asked me to come up with a brand for myself. And he's like, just give
Mhm,
me three things that you think would be critical for your success and that really describe you. And I thought about it. And the three things that really describe me is compassion, kind of the compassion that I have for people, the compassion that I want to lead with, accountability, so holding myself
Mm-hmm.
accountable for what I say I'm going to do and holding those around me accountable for what they tell me, and a vision.
Mm-hmm.
And so creating visions, creating a roadmap to achieving that goal or that aspiration.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's really about having that straight structure. And once you have that, it makes it a little bit easier for you to craft your vision. So I would say
Mm-hmm.
it might sound like a bit of an easy task, but do give it some time and reflection on what's most important to me and what do I want to be remembered for? What's that legacy that I
Mm-hmm.
want to leave? And then work
Mm-hmm.
your way forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think yeah, that's really good advice, and I would definitely recommend people doing that. It doesn't matter if you're a fresh graduate or if you have been, in a career. Um, it's always good to, reflect on that.
Yeah,
So let's talk a little bit about, the challenges that you've faced. Obviously, when you're working in sales, you're kind of like an individual contributor.
yes,
And then, in a leadership role, it's all about your team, and, it's not about you. Then you have to like shift those priorities. So what kind of challenges did you face when you like transitioned from that role to like into leadership?
definitely. I would say as an individual contributor, you're almost running your own business because
Mm-hmm.
you're setting your own schedule. You're saying that this is the time I'm going to prospect. This is the time that I'm going to lead towards farming opportunities. And you're really creating that structure for yourself versus when you move into leadership, it's not just thinking about I, but thinking about we and how can you do things for the greater team. So you do have to shift that mentality, but also shifting the mentality of I can't run every single deal. And I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
harder part for salespeople is we're so used to running our own deals that when you step into management, it's like, okay, I need to step one a bit away. And how do I
Mm-hmm.
guide these members on my team to now lead these opportunities? How do I
Mm-hmm.
inspire them or instill confidence and make sure that
Mm-hmm.
they're empowered with the tools that we have present to really be successful?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it does take a differentiation between the two roles, and really understanding how can I help in terms of being almost a servant leader when you move into that
Mm-hmm.
leadership role.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about sales. Obviously, you were in that role, and you must have learned a lot from that role. And, there's so many strategies and so many methodologies and techniques that people follow. But was there any particular um, methodology that, stuck out to you, or, you know, that you were like, okay, I'm gonna take this and move forward and, share it with my team as well?
I will say there is one that kind of has stuck to me. There's different ways, different approaches to it, but it's value selling, where you're no longer just selling your solution, but you're really selling on the value behind it and really how
Mm-hmm.
can that help the customer achieve their goals. Because at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, if you're just selling a product, you're not necessarily, you're doing a disservice to your customers.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're
Mm-hmm.
really looking at, okay, what is their problem? What is their challenge? And how can I bring value to them where it's not just
Mm-hmm.
value today, but it's value for the long term? That's when
Mm-hmm.
you're going to see success, but that's where the customer is also going to have success. And there is more of an inclination for them to come back to you because now you're a trusted advisor, and they're
Mm-hmm.
more likely to also refer their friends, their families, their corporate,
Mm-hmm.
alliances to you
Mm-hmm.
because they know that you're bringing something more than what your
Yeah.
competitors might be. Whereas they might be selling on products, you're selling on really doing them a good service and bringing value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I absolutely agree with that, because a lot of times, with sales, especially like the BDR roles, when usually, they're filled by, people who are just entering sales, and, with sometimes like the pressure of like closing deals and, time as well, there is a tendency to, your focus gets shifted, and sometimes you're focusing more on just like closing the deal instead of like actually seeing if, there's actually value behind it. So I feel like we definitely need a reminder that, okay, we definitely need to keep that priority always with us. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to realize, like, yes, sales is challenging to learn, but you will also gain a lot through experience. And so even if you're
Mhm.
shadowing your peers that have more experience, at least you'll learn how they navigate a conversation. What are things that they say? How do they ask questions or frame scenarios to get to what they're looking for in terms of an answer?
Mhm.
Because that's really going to set you apart from your peers.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so if someone asks you advice, and it's a woman who's like aspiring to become a leader in sales, what advice would you give them?
Oh gosh, that is a good question. I would say to stay authentic to yourself. I think in sales, it's very hard that you want to step into the role of your peers as leaders, or you want to embody other leaders that you've seen that are successful. But I would say the further that you move away from yourself, the harder it is to actually make that sale. When you're very authentic with the questions that you have and you have a natural curiosity, it comes across to your clients and they see
Mm,
that and they see that genuine nature. And I think that
mm,
builds the fact that people sell to people. And
mm,
I think sometimes we take the humanity out of it, but we do need to bring it back and say, no, we are people and we do care and we're trying to do everything that we can to help. So when you're very authentic to yourself, I think that's the best way to kind of be successful in sales.
mhm. Um, and then can you share something from your career, from your experience, when it comes to maybe a successful sales campaign or strategy or a deal that you're proud of?
Yeah. Are you looking for like a specific part of it
Um,
or?
I mean, not necessarily, just something that, you know, um, an achievement that you're proud of. That
Got
I
it.
think if, yeah.
Yeah, I would say I had one opportunity that kind of stands out to me where it kind of took a mountain, it took a team, it took a village to really succeed in it. I had a client who was just very nitpicky. He wanted to know every single detail. He was very technical and wanted to make sure that he went through every line of the statement of work, every line of the quote. He was
Mm,
very detail oriented just due to the nature of his business. And so had created
mm,
blueprints for us to review,
mm,
and created quite a bit of a document that outlined his business and what he was trying to do. And it
mm,
was the most like information I had ever been provided with from a client to say, do you
mhm,
really understand my business before
mm.
you go ahead crafting a solution?
Yeah.
Um, and he quizzed us on it to make sure that we had actually gone through the
Mm.
documents, we fully understood the business.
Wow.
And it was something that my team was like, Ashley, he's looking for a little too much. We don't think that we can actually do this. And
Mm,
for me, it was a skill and some training in terms of selling internally and externally. So I
mm,
had to sell to my internal team to say, hey, I do think we can do this. Here's our capabilities. Here's how I see each team department playing out. And here's how we can succeed together. But then also seeing
mm,
the client in person and saying, here are the
mm,
deliverables we've created. Here's the criteria you've presented. Here's how we've
mm,
created a roadmap to getting you to where you want to be. And
mm,
so I think it's about rallying internally and externally sometimes to
mm,
really create that joint success. And when everyone
mm,
does have that roadmap and they can see that vision,
mm,
that's when you're more inclined to actually having that success. And for me, that was like the biggest win because it
Mm,
was overcoming so many hurdles and so many challenges that no one could see
mm,
that light at the end of the tunnel. But
yeah.
I became that light to say, no, no, come on, we can still keep going, we can get there.
Mm, mm,
And so don't give up in the face of
yeah.
challenges, I would say. It's really about that
Mm,
perseverance and that determination to
mm,
really see the success, um,
mm,
and questioning yourself. Like when you think you've won the deal, go back and ask yourself, have I really, did I do everything that I could? Is there something else that's outstanding? Because you don't want that one thing that you could have done to be the reason that you don't get
mm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think that's something really important that you mentioned here is about like not just thinking about, the external factors, but also like the internal factors, because I think when it comes to like working with like a difficult client or a customer, we often just think about, okay, you had some challenges when you were dealing with the client directly or, in that way, but you never really think about how much you also have to like, um, navigate those challenge of like internally as well, because I totally get it where even internally your team is like, this client is really difficult, really demanding, and we don't really want to
it. Yeah.
take on this client. But yeah, I'm glad that you were able to do that, and that just sounds very amazing. Um, so moving on to the culture of the team. How do you foster a positive and just a productive team culture?
I would say it comes down to creating an environment where the team wants to be there. And so
Mm,
initially, I would do kind of team building activities. So coming up
mm,
with a team name is something that the entire team can rally around, but it's something that motivates them. But giving them small tasks where they can build trust with each other, I think
mm,
is really important because it's your team. You want to be able to rely on them. You do support them within that. And sales can be very individualistic because you are chasing your individual numbers. And so
mm,
when you look at your metrics, and you look at your quota, you're like, that's something that I'm doing by myself. So
mm,
how do you go about creating that where it's like, well, no, because I need these supporting roles to help me to get to that outcome. So we would do a
mm,
lot of team building activities. We would work together. I held kind of different meetings throughout the week. So we would do like a team meeting or one-on-one meetings. But I would say the biggest value add for my team was my gratitude meetings. So
mm,
on Fridays, you've gone through your highs and lows of the week. There's probably been
mm.
something that has been amazing and something that has not been so fulfilling. So
Yes.
Fridays, what I would do is book a quick meeting with the team to say, hey,
Mm,
regardless of what's happened this week, can you find one thing that you're grateful for and share it with the team?
mm,
It could be
mm,
personal, it could be professional, it could be that the sun came up this morning. But it was something to
mm,
end your week on a high to say, I'm going
mm,
into the weekend and I have something good and something that I'm thankful for that happened. And
mm,
for me, I found that it really reshaped the perspective of the team to
mm,
say, oh, like we're actually people. There are things that,
mm,
happen that are might be uncomfortable. But at the
mm,
end of the day, there is something that I'm grateful for. I was
mm,
able to laugh about something with the team, and I feel
mm.
better going into the weekend, just feeling grateful about something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's amazing, and I hope every department or every manager does this, because
Yeah.
I think that's really important, because yeah, you just I think kind of like shift that focus from like, oh, okay, what's something positive that happened this
Yes.
week, and also just like sharing that with the team. I think that like kind of like a sense of community comes in, and it's just really nice to see, even if like someone shares that, oh, like, okay, I haven't really had a good week, but this is a small win. it just also makes you kind of like, okay, yeah, there's other people in the team as well who are like kind of like going through the same thing. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I would definitely recommend, even if you don't have a team, try doing it yourself. It will lift your
Mhm,
spirits, and
mhm.
give you a different perspective on life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. um are there any things, that maybe you hope that organizations do when it comes to, like, advocating for women? Have you, seen anything, examples of it, maybe in the companies that you work with? Um, yeah, just, about advocating for women in the organization.
Absolutely. I would say there's a few companies that I've seen, and even, I would say the larger companies are getting into it where they're having and holding a safe space for women to have unconventional conversations, I would say, where they're talking about things like work-life balance. Like, I
Mm,
left the workplace to go have my first child. When I come
mm,
back, postpartum, what does that mean? Or things
mm,
like having your period at work. How does that change things? How should men
mm,
react? And
mm,
it's very encouraging to see a lot of men on those calls because they're asking questions that I think in the past they've been very scared to ask. Like, how do I
mm,
respond to the situation? Or what can I do to make it easier or more inclusive environment for you?
mm,
And I think
mm,
those are conversations that now belong in the workplace to say, how can we create really an inclusive environment where every day that you do come to work, you feel like you deserve to be there,
mm,
but that you're welcomed regardless of what's going on. So I would say there's more of these conversations being had, and I think post pandemic there's been more webinars about this as well. So join those
mm,
conversations, I would say, is really critical because the more that we're having them, the more that it's creating an impact in the cultures and the organizations that people
mm.
are working at now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, totally agree with that. Um, when it comes to, any team members that maybe in the past you've worked with, or maybe currently you're working with, but how do you deal with, any challenges that they're facing, when it comes to maybe like their performance, or maybe, their growth or development? How do you kind of, um, have that planning, to make sure that your team is actually learning and developing? And if someone is struggling, how do you deal with that?
Yeah. I would say it's working with that individual because it's not something that a leader should take on by themselves.
Mhm,
It's something that if you want to make that investment on that individual also has to make an investment in themselves. So
mhm,
during those one-on-one meetings, have or an unscheduled one-on-one meeting with them and really talk to them about what their goal is in life and one, are they happy coming to work every day? Because if they're not, maybe it's not the right role. Maybe it's something else that's bothering them. So I would say that's kind of a critical question. And then from there,
mhm,
gather if this is the right role, is there something that you can do to help? Is it that there
mhm,
is a lack of training? Is there a specific area that they're struggling with? Really try to dive deep into what's the specific struggle or challenge that they're facing. Or is it something that's
mhm,
personal? Because that could also be the case, and that's coming into the workplace. And so I think it
mhm,
is critical to have that conversation, create that safe environment for them to feel that they can come to you and that it's not going to go anywhere else. But that they understand that you do have that natural inclination to helping them. Um,
mhm,
and that you can create what I would do with my team is create a roadmap and say, what can you do to say these are the steps and they're actionable that you're going to do
mhm,
to get towards this goal? And what can I do to
mhm,
help? And
mhm,
during our one on ones, we would revisit this and say, okay,
mhm,
have you taken that step? Have you gotten anywhere
mhm,
closer? Did an
mhm,
unexpected challenge come up? Because it does happen. How can
mhm,
we refine this roadmap to achieving your goal? And
Mm-hmm.
it might sound small, but it has helped someone on my team buy their first house and buy their first
Mm-hmm.
car. And so it
Mm-hmm.
is monumental things to really getting to where they
Mm-hmm.
want to be. It's helped people on my team go from pips to president's club. And so I think it's about really making sure that you're staying accountable as part of that brand. Um,
Yeah.
that I'm holding myself accountable and holding others accountable to getting to
Yeah.
those professional and personal dreams.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then definitely, it definitely stuck out to me when you just mentioned that, when we had our chat before, you had taken on that challenge of, taking those people in, pips and, really working on them to, becoming successful. And yeah, that was really, something that it's definitely inspirational, especially for like other leaders and managers. And, not, just looking at it as, something that, it might not be working or things like that, but actually like taking on that as a challenge, because I think that's what you mentioned before, that,
Yeah.
you actually took that as a challenge for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's knowing, where you're able, what's your skill set? Are you able to take on that challenge? Are you not? And it
Mhm,
does take an emotional toll as well. So be sure that
mhm,
that does exist. But
mhm,
can you get to that point where you can manage that stress and create a plan for yourself? And sometimes it's hard because it's not like your
mhm,
emotions turn off the minute that you end work. And when you're a
mhm,
leader, I feel like sometimes you take those emotions home. So I think
mhm,
it's really important for you to also practice a sense of self care. And how are you turning
mhm,
off? Do you have a practice or something that you can do? Is it meditation? Is it going for a walk, going to the gym, doing
mhm,
something where you can actually focus on yourself and making sure that you are taking care of yourself as well? Because you have to
mhm,
have, I would say, a cup full before you can pour into others.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So is that something that you do for like creating that work-life balance for yourself? Like, these self-care activities, or like what is your go-to when it comes to, creating that balance?
Absolutely. So I would say I'm a morning gym girl. I wake up really early. I go to the gym before work starts. I feel like it sets a sense of accomplishment because if I go in the
Mhm,
morning, I feel accomplished that I've done a task,
mhm,
I've checked that off my list, and it sets me up
mhm,
for success throughout the entire day, which is great.
mhm, mhm,
And then I think for me, it's also valuing the fact that, meditation is important. So I'm a
mhm.
life coach and a meditation coach. And so I run
Oh,
a 6 phase meditation as well. And
oh,
so I say I like to embody what I teach. And so that's why
mm.
I try to practice that every day too.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
If you're doing that. So yeah, yeah, that's really nice. And so when it comes to your goals, when it comes to maybe your role or maybe your career path, what do you envision for yourself in like the next couple of years?
Yeah, I would say I definitely love being a leader and really empowering my team. So, staying in a leadership position, I would say, is definitely something that I do see myself doing. And moving up within that sales area, and looking for places and areas that I can make the biggest impact is really something that's passion, like my passion project. And then from that, also growing my coaching business. So I manage a coaching, performance coaching, and career coaching business. So it's really
Mhm.
about what can I do to empower people around me to really make sure that they're achieving their goals as well.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's amazing. If you are doing these coachings, because yeah, I mean that's really important, because a lot of people do need like that kind of guidance, especially from other leaders and their learning. So,
Yes.
any way you can like mentor others is a great way. So yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, and then usually I just end the episode with asking about, 5 things that you can say that you're proud of about yourself.
Okay. Let me think about that. I would say 5 things. So, first off, I would say I just graduated from my MBA at Western. So that
Oh,
was a big
amazing.
accomplishment for me. Thank you. Um,
Congratulations.
thank you. Definitely something that was always on my bucket list, but wasn't sure if it was something that I could achieve. So, really proud to be a first generation within my family to be an MBA graduate. And I can already see it's inspiring my cousins of future
Mhm,
generations to look forward to.
mhm,
And just friends that I
mhm,
have are now applying. So, it's great to see that trajectory.
mhm,
I would say also becoming a leader at a very young age was really, really, I would say, key. It was something
mhm,
that I wasn't sure that if I'd be able to do, but stepping into leadership, I can see the impact that I've had and the fact that I can
mhm,
make so much change and influence on people, and it's very positive, is something that I'm
mhm,
really proud of. So
mhm,
seeing that success is really great. Also, having this coaching business, I would say, is phenomenal to just be able
mhm,
to really do that one on one that I was looking for since high school.
mhm. Yeah.
In doing that coaching and just being able to help people kind of navigate their own challenges and struggles and getting beyond that
Mhm,
glass ceiling and seeing their
mhm,
success has been
mhm,
really rewarding. Um, it's
mhm,
nothing that impacts me, but just seeing that smile on their face and knowing that they're able to accomplish their goals is
mhm,
huge.
mhm.
Um, two more things. Let me think. I would say getting into kind of my dream company right now is huge. It has
Mhm,
not let me down in terms of what I thought about the
mhm,
company and just being able to see the impact that they're having in terms of creating a corporate culture that is really
mhm,
supportive and inclusive and creating a safe
mhm,
space for people to authentically bring them their full selves to work has been really
mhm,
inspiring to see. Um,
mhm,
and I would say the last one is just authentically being myself. It doesn't matter where I am, is something that I think for women is a challenge. And they're not always
mhm,
sure if they're going to be accepted. So
mhm,
I would definitely say that's a huge thing, is just saying, no, it doesn't matter where I am. I can bring my full authentic self and not be scared or worried about that judgment or the challenges that might come up.
yeah, yeah, that was great. I think you did really well. But yeah, it's always interesting because I always ask my guests, this question at the end, and they kind of like always struggle with it, and that's just the reality.
Yes.
To show that like kind of how we struggle with just like acknowledging our own like wins and successes. So that's why I always kind of like include this question. So it's kind of like gratitude exercise as well,
Yeah.
kind of in a
Yeah.
way.
And I love that because you're bringing it back to us, right?
Yeah,
And that humble brag is something that I feel like we don't do enough of. And just sitting there
yeah.
and recognizing, oh, I did achieve something. I can check that off my
Mm,
bucket list. Like that is a goal that
yeah.
I was able to do. I don't think we take enough time for that. And so, welcome back to the gratitude meetings. Welcome back to having that on your show. I think that that's an awesome
Exactly.
question to be asking.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. So, I would just like to at the end, thank you for, participating in this podcast and, sharing your story because even that is, a huge achievement in itself because, you were vulnerable, you were open and honest, and, that in itself is just, a huge inspiration to others. And also, I would like to thank whoever is listening, and I hope it helps you in being inspired and learning from Ashley and her journey as well. I would also be happy to just share how people can, get that coaching from you in
Absolutely.
the description, and, so that people can reach out to you or, have that coaching from you if anyone is interested in that. So I be also happy to share that with everyone.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, thanks everyone for listening, and thank you, Ashley.
Thank you so much. And I love this platform. I love what you're trying to do and setting up this initiative. I think it's key for women to be able to hear these stories. And I hope that you take a couple of words of wisdom and that it can inspire you to achieve your goals. Thanks so much, Bria.
Awesome. Thank you.